How's it going? Welcome back, or hello again, or hello if you're new. I don't know. These intro videos are awkward to film? Maybe? Kind of. Anyway, in this video we are making the Brooklyn Handbag by Swoon Sewing Patterns. This bag is tiny, I guess. I don't know. It's small. We added purse feet to the bottom. We used leather to make it. We had some fun. Definitely make sure you follow the pattern instructions no matter what I say in this video regarding placement and these little connectors. I actually don't mind the size that I made them, but I do think it made the bag a little bit harder to get into. But the way this bag is designed is just kind of hard to get into anyway. Like, I don't know. It's not bad. We added 2 slip pockets. The customer did not want any zippered pockets. So, yeah. It looks pretty darn cute though, if I do say so myself, and I'm excited for the shipping it out along with the rest of her order. I hope you guys enjoy this video. I hope that if you had trouble making this bag before, this dissolves all those problems. Be sure to subscribe. Feel free to share these videos if you would like in other groups where people are having issues. Yeah, that's it. All right, have fun making it. Where's the finish button? All right, so I've got my hardware ready to go. I've got all of my pieces cut out, so I hope. Anyway, I'm going to start by sewing my straps. I'm going to start by sewing my strap connectors, thingy-mabobbers. And then we can get started on the lining and exterior and all the fun stuff. This bag is tiny. I know I said it in the intro, I just want to reiterate, this bag is tiny. I always tell my customers, like, are you sure? Are you sure? Okay, you know what the travel size? All right, I asked, I made sure. So we've got all of our pieces cut out, ready to go, hopefully. And I'm gonna start by sewing my straps. I'm using 24-inch straps. And I'm gonna use 1/4-inch basting tape along the outer edges. Normally I use just 1 inch in the center, but with leather, I don't usually like the way it feels. And I am using leather, as requested by my customer. Let me know down below if you guys make bags to sell, if you make them for yourself. I always like knowing like what people are making bags for or who they're making them for. I think it's fun. Alright, so I'm peeling off one side and I'm gonna fold it into the center. And I've just realized that I didn't mark a center, so let's just hope that I nailed it. Maybe if not, then I'll mark the center for the other one. Yeah, good enough. So I'm leaving a little bit of space in between the folds to the center, just so that I can have enough room to fold it on top of itself. I'm going to start on one side. My stitch length is set to 5. I'm using Tex 92 bonded polyester thread and a size 19 needle. My machine is a Juki 1181N. It is a standard walking foot. You cannot remove the walking foot. As far as I know, you can add different kinds of feet, smaller, but anyway. So down one side, up the other. always try to do my straps first because you've got a fresh bobbin in the machine, you may as well. Okay, trimmed my excess threads. You can use a lighter if you have any other threads, just scared of hanging out. I love the feeling of leather straps. I don't know why. Alright. So we'll repeat that step. I'm making this bag without a crossbody strap. The customer did not request one, so I won't be adding those side connector thingy at the top of my bobbers. This bag is just so small. One of the first few Brooklyn handbags that I sold, people bought them for camera bags, so I mean that's a thought, because that's how tiny this bag is. She's pretty. All right, so I set my straps aside and I'm going to go ahead and add my accent panels. There is a little notch cut out in the top of the bag, so you want to make sure you kind of remember that and keep your notches at the top. So I'm going to use a little bit of spray adhesive on the back of my accent panel so that I can keep it in place. And I just spray it into my trash can. So I lay my item on top of the trash can and spray. Whoops. Be careful, it's gonna be real sticky. So just line up the bottom. And just press it into place. Hard to see. I don't necessarily have a basting spray brand that I recommend. This is a quilt basting spray by Sullivan's, and it's literally like glue, like repositioning glue from what's that brand? Elmer's glue, I guess. I don't know. I don't love it, but I paid for it, so I have to deal with it. My favorite basting spray is for embroidery, and it just kind of like sprays out a webbing almost, and it is less intense of a glue. Anyway, so those are sprayed together. This needs to be, I believe, 6 inches. Yes. I don't know, man, that just seems so small. Leave it that length, and I'm going to cut it later. We'll figure that out. So this piece is 10 inches by 1.5. And I'm just going to fold the edges that are raw into the center and stitch along the sides. I'm honestly not sure what thickness of leather this is, but none of it is so thick that I need to use a skiver on it, so I'm thankful for that. So I'm just gonna sew down the raw edges and I'll figure it out later. I think I'm just really used to making the travel size that this just seems so small. Alright, so I'm going to set that with my straps just aside for now. And I'm going to sew on my accent panel. I'm going to use a size 4 stitch length because of how small this is, and I want to make sure I get around those curves really nicely. So we're going to back stitch at the beginning, and then I'm just going to sew really, really slowly around the curve. And I'm following the inside of my walking foot. So it's super, super close to the edge. I'm going to back stitch, and then I'm going to sew down the sides and the bottom. I actually just recently made a Brooklyn handbag with hidden connectors, and I loved it so much. I would highly recommend using hidden connectors because it's so much less tedious, less cutting, and you can see more of your print that way. I would do that for this one, but I didn't discuss it with the customer, and she might notice. Leather is like a really nice upholstery leather. I think that's what the section it was in the store. But I was like, I mean, it feels soft, it looks pretty, it's not too thick. So I bought it. So there's that panel. I do have the foam attached. I use Woven Fuse and Decaville Light. If you're using a regular quilting cotton, I don't think you would need the Decaville Light in combination with it, but it does really give it a lot of structure, so I like that. So now I'm going to prep my connectors, and what I do is I cut out 4 of the connectors. I added a little bit of Decaville Light to the top just for that little extra strength, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use basting spray on a larger piece. I'm going to basting spray the wrong side really lightly. And I'm going to lay these on top of it. You can see, and then as per the pattern instructions, I'm going to top stitch at about just that whole flat part of the connector. It has like this rounded edge, and then there's like a flat part. So I'm just going to sew along all of those. I'll zoom in so you guys can see it a little better. And this is while it's all together. So start there. I'm going to use like a 3.5 back stitch, go forward, turn it around, and just kind of start and stop in the same place. And then I'm just going to jump over to the next one, back stitch, go forward, next one. And now you can see we've got them all sewn together nice and easily. And I'm going to take this thread Zap 2 to clean it all up. You want to be really careful with this, but as soon as I hit that red button, or the little button on the side, it's going to cut through the thread. This portion here is what heats up and just kind of just melts it. But you want to make sure you're not like touching your vinyl or leather with it because it will burn it. So you guys can see this okay. And you don't want to hold the button down for way too long or it's going to heat up and get bright red. And I mean, you don't necessarily want that. My friend Lily shared this in the sewing group and I was like, need this, so I bought it. Really saves a lot of time, and especially if you're using bonded polyester or nylon, it's really helpful. I don't know if you're supposed to, but I just kind of like blow on it before I put the cap back on because I don't want anything to happen. But the cap does have a really nice indentation so that you can't accidentally push the button. But I would recommend leaving it, keeping it out of the reach of children. Okay, so now we're ready to cut these out. I'm gonna use a hopefully sharp pair of scissors and I'm just going to carefully trace around the outside edge. So there's your connector. If you want, you could use edge coat along the outside edge now to give it a nice finish, but I'm not going to worry about it. I think it'll look great just the way it is. And this is why you want to use a basting spray that holds pretty well so that your layers don't separate as you're cutting. You don't want things to shift. So I'm just really slowly, those outside curves, you want to make sure that they're one continuous movement of your blade. Otherwise, it's gonna look weird. So as you can see, this is a lot faster than cutting out 8 of these at the exact same time, trying to get them all perfect and then lining them up straight. Just no. Unless of course you're using vinyl and you use like a silhouette cameo to cut them out or something like that, that saves a lot of time. Okay. So all of our connectors are pretty much done. And I'm gonna use basting tape or 1/2-inch leather tape to get these all ready to go. I like to look at each side and decide which one is the wrong side and add a piece of tape along the bottom. This is about 1.5 inches long piece of tape. I need 4 of them. 1, 2, 3. Okay. That looks like a good back. It's a good front. No, that looks good as a front. No, we'll make that the back. Okay. So these are 3/4 of an inch wide. So I'm gonna grab my 3/4 inch square rings and I'm gonna unpeel the backing tape just a little bit. I'm gonna throw my square ring over top. I'm gonna fold this over. So that's what it looks like now. And I will add a clip just because I added that Decoville light in there also, and it's really strong. It's gonna wanna come apart. So unfold it just a little bit. We're not unfolding it all the way just yet because I don't want it to stick to something it shouldn't be sticking to. I wanna stick it to the fabric. And then it seems kind of silly, but I just kind of line them up next to each other and make sure that they're pretty even. There we go. Good job. And now I can grab the front of one of the exterior panels of the bag, grab a ruler. I'll zoom you guys back out for a second, just a little bit. All right. So my panel is 15 inches wide. So 7.5 is my center. And I think that the placement is 2 inches from the top and 2.5 from the center. I'm probably very wrong. I did not check the pattern and I'm on my phone, so I can't check. Oh, I did my tape all the way. So 2.5 from the center. Honestly, I'm just kind of eyeballing it with how it will look with the bottom accent. So if I'm wrong, follow the pattern, not me. So 2.5 inches, 2.5, 1, 2, and 2 inches down. Yeah, that looks good. So I'm just making sure to rub it all over and make sure it's stuck nicely. I'm gonna set that one aside and work on this one while I remember those measurements. So 2 inches from the top. Unpeel the backing. 7.5, 1, 2. And the way that I make sure they at least look pretty straight is by, there's my half, there's 2, is by pushing my hardware up against the ruler and holding it in place and then pushing it down. Because I've seen some janky looking connectors. All right, so now we're ready to sew the connector onto the bag. I'm going to start by sewing across the bottom of the connector. I'm going to keep it at about 3.5 to sew these on, just because I don't want it's so small, I don't want to mess it up. So I'm going to stop at the side of the connector. Let me zoom you guys back in, I'm sorry. Hopefully you can see well enough. There we go. And I'm going to turn like this, and I'm going to use just a random piece of vinyl or whatever along the back so that my walking foot doesn't mess up the connector, because it will. It's really rough and it is good at messing things up. And then we're just going to go really slowly along the curve. I have my hand on the turn wheel just so I make sure it looks nice along that curve. And then once I get back to the top, I'm gonna back stitch a little bit, and then I can lift up. And then I'm gonna zap those threads off. I'm gonna use this thread zapping tool again. Just melt them gone. Melt them gone. Yeah, that sounds right. So you can see here, this is what my walking foot will do to that leather, and I do not want that to happen to my actual connector, so that's why I put that over top. Okay. And we'll do it again. Start at the side. And you want to make sure that you're catching the under fold of that connector, otherwise it's going to be weak. You don't want that. So nice and slow around that connector. And then we'll just zap off the thread. So there are the connectors attached, and I'm definitely going to add a rivet when I'm done with sewing all of the connectors on. Oh my. Okay. Alright, so now we are ready to add our rivets. So I'm going to zoom you guys back out for that. I'm using black nickel rivets. And all of the hardware that I'm using is actually available to purchase through my website if you guys want to have amazing quality hardware. That's definitely not to say that other hardware isn't amazing quality, but I know for a fact mine is. And I'm located in the USA. I actually live in Illinois, so there you go. So I'm just gonna eyeball. This is a lot of leather to poke through, so you just want to go nice and slow, don't hurt yourself. Oh, mama, she's pretty. Nice and slow. Some leather is too thick to even get through this many layers, but we're doing okay. make it through. I don't even know if I made it through this. Oh, I did. Cool. Okay. All right. So now we can add our caps and get them all in. Rivets are added. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set these aside and I'm gonna work on my lining. I'm also going to pick out a zipper because I just realized I never did. I think I'm just gonna go with a solid black zipper. The zipper, the size that I'm using, I believe is 16 inches. And I'm gonna iron it before I start. And my customer did not request any zippered pockets on the lining of their bag, so I'm going to be adding 2 slip pockets. I'm going to make them the same way that I would a normal zippered pocket. We're just not adding a zipper, so saves time, I guess. So I've got my pieces folded in half. Make sure your little divot marks are facing up. I'm gonna fold my zipper piece or my pocket piece in half as well. I'm just gonna line up those. You have to keep in mind that the bag is kind of like scrunched down after it's sewn together. So you want to kind of make those zip, slip, whatever pockets pretty low. I'm going to make mine 7 inches. And we'll just do one at a time, whatever. So my stitch length is still at 3.5, and I'm just going to sew 2 parallel lines. I clipped my zipper pocket, my pocket piece to the bottom just so nothing shifted while I was sewing. And I'm going to cut that open and turn it through and then top stitch and add the backing, and then we'll do it again. I'm going to iron it from the right side because you shouldn't iron the back of waterproof canvas. I'm going to use a lot of steam, that'll help keep it in place. And then, since I'm not adding a zipper, I'm just going to sew around the opening. Some people tell me that they honestly just leave their zipper pockets unzipped. So if you have no zippers, this is the way to do it. You could even add like a leather or vinyl accent piece around the opening. By Piera.com, she sells zipper accent overlay pieces or templates that are awesome. I have all the sizes. I mean, they come as a set anyway, so yeah. All right. So now we're going to leave one of these open, so I'm just going to sew in a U shape, leaving the bottom open. so there is one side of our zipper, non-zippered pocket. And there's what that looks like. You could honestly sew across this top panel again, just so there's no lip to it, but it works out just fine. So set that aside. All right, so our divots are facing towards the top, these little corner cutouts. We're gonna open it up. We're gonna fold one of these in half. Don't line those folds together. I'm gonna add a clip to the bottom so nothing moves. I'm gonna grab my zipper template. Two parallel lines. Hold it open. Okay, and now this one we can just sew it completely closed, so I'm just gonna sew a square around. What's up, Connor? What are you doing? That's a pocket completely sewn together. And now we're ready to add our zipper to the top of the bag. Let's actually mark our bottom centers. So from me cutting this out, you can see there are little center placement marks there, but I need to fold it in half like a taco and make little snips there as well, because that is where we're going to add our little D-ring connectors. And you want to make sure that you don't forget that step, because it's not fun to forget. Okay, I feel like I'm going to cut these to 4 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'm going to cut these to 4 inches long, just so it's a little bit taller. 2, 2. We've got a little 2-inch piece left over that I'm gonna have to throw away, which makes me sad, but no big deal. It's fine. Ooh, goodbye. All right, so I'm grabbing my 3/4 inch D-ring connectors, and I'm going to clip them together. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sew down the center of the fold. stitch and back stitch. So this is gonna keep it together. So, and then I don't really need to add a rivet or anything. And I also don't need to like sew across the top of the connector. So that's just what I do. So I sewed down the center line of that. And now we can add them to the bottom panel. I remember making this with my domestic machine and it would always skip the stitches along those connectors. So if you have a domestic machine and you're making this bag, maybe use just regular quilting cotton for that portion that's well interfaced. But with vinyl, it's just gonna fall out. I actually have the very first Brooklyn I made. I use it as my show bag, so I keep everything I need for craft shows in it. And it's falling apart. All right, so my bottom is ready. I like to do that step while I remember, because if you forget, it's not fun. I've done it before. So now kind of grab and see which one you want to be the front of your bag. I definitely want this to be the front of my bag. So I've got my ironed zipper and I'm just gonna lay it straight across the top, clip it into place, and I'm going to baste it on. So set my stitch length to like 4.5 and 1/8 of an inch from the edge, just baste it in place. I highly recommend basting it first so that your zipper doesn't kind of shift, especially with the foam being part of it. So we're gonna lay these right sides together and then clip it from the wrong side and flip it over, and then you can sew just right next to the baste stitch. So now we can open it up. I like to iron it from the lining side and then fold it over again and iron from the lining side, just so it's a nice crisp fold. Make sure you don't touch your leather or vinyl with your iron, that would be bad. Okay. So now we can top stitch straight across the zipper through the lining as well. And you should be sewing through the foam at this point. To the end. Okay, so that's what you're looking at. And then your zipper pocket is on the other side if your customer wanted a zipper. Mine did not, whatever. And we're gonna just repeat those steps with the other side as well. And just make sure you carefully line up your front pieces. You want it to be the same on both sides. Baste it into place. We'll grab our other lining piece and lay it over top. Clip from the wrong side. Flip it over. Sounds like we might be running out of bottom threads soon. that. Okay, so I'm gonna iron this open one more time. I am going to clip my lining to the other side. So I've already sewn this part, so I'm clipping that together because I've had it where my lining kind of got folded over on itself, and I sewed through my other lining panel while I was top stitching this panel, and I mean, I cried, but it was fine. Alright. So now you just kind of open it like a book. I try to pull on it just slightly. From this side, I kind of tug, make sure that lining layer stays out of place, into place, out of the way. Okay. We're close to done, you guys. It's been fairly quick, I think. Alright, so everything looks pretty well lined up. I need to add my nameplate before I forget. I'm actually going to do that from this side. I'm going to grab my larger nameplate, which feels weird because it's such a small bag. I hate to add a nameplate this big, but oh well. And I am going to add it just above this curved piece, so probably about an inch above it. And I know a lot of people have been asking me about my nameplates. I ordered them through Alibaba. I don't have the link for the guy anymore, but his name was Bruce. It was pretty expensive, and I wouldn't say that they're the best quality, which is kind of a bummer. I mean, they're good, but they're not amazing. If you order from him, make sure you tell him you need a washer. The first couple times I ordered, I didn't know that I needed a washer, and they kept falling out, but that washer is gonna help keep them in place. So highly recommend adding a washer. Okay, so there's the nameplate. Nice, oh yeah. But I also sell nameplates that say handcrafted through my website for you guys. The quality is amazing, and I designed them myself. So they have like a really fun beveled edge. I don't know, they're beautiful. I've been wanting to design my own, but I have to order 200 of each color, and I don't know if I need 1,000 more nameplates when I already have so many. Oh. I'm gonna put that in. Okay, so I'm clipping together my lining sides, clipping together my exteriors, and we're gonna sew them up. So while I start with my lining side, I'm going to make my seam allowance a little bit wider than I will for my exterior. You do not want to sew through your zipper. You want to sew to that square opening and then back down the other one. When I get to my vinyl accent panel, I'm going to back stitch over just to lock that in place. And then if all of your pieces are cut correctly, you should be sewing right next to your foam. So right next to it. So don't sew through this little portion. Don't sew over your zipper. Just kind of pick your thread up and move, and then cut the excess. And then repeat those steps for the other side. On this side, I start with the lining, and I just sew right next to the foam, all the way up, back stitch over that vinyl accent panel, and then you should hit right next to that square. Don't sew through your zipper. Lift up your foot, reposition yourself, back stitch, and then widen your seam allowance. And that's gonna make it so your lining isn't saggy inside of the bag. And then we're gonna cut all of the excess. Do not cut through your excess zipper. I repeat, do not cut through your excess zipper. You do not wanna do that. And then I'm actually going to kind of leave excess seam allowance along the bottom just so I can attach my bottom panel a little easier. So I'm just kind of tapering it out. And I do this with a lot of my bags actually. All right, so now we can open it up, we can unzip our zipper. Make sure you didn't leave off your zipper end or you're gonna hate yourself later. So I just kind of check everything out, make sure my accent panels are lined up nicely. They look good. So we're ready to attach our bottom panels, and then we're gonna flip the bag through and add the side connectors. And I think I actually grabbed the wrong size. Yes. So you actually need 1-inch side clips. So I'm gonna grab 1-inch side clips really quick. I grabbed 3/4. I need a clock down here. All right. There we go. 1-inch snap hooks for the side connectors. And I don't have an iron one, so okay. So I'm gonna start with the exterior bottom panel because it's more nerve-wracking. So we're gonna start by lining up our side panels. Open up that side seam and clip. I can never clip through that connector, so I just add my clips right next to it. Make sure your hardware is inside the bag. You will definitely want a stapler for this portion, make your life easier. So we're going to again line up our center. So you can see this center line, you want to line that up. If you snipped there, again, you can line up with your snips too. And then just kind of push the bottom of the bag into the bag. It might pucker just slightly, but that is okay. We can work with those. If everything was cut and sewn correctly, the puckers shouldn't be too bad. You should be able to just kind of pinch them in. Otherwise, you can trim down your Peltex a little bit. There will never be enough clips for this part of the bag. Oh, that's where half my clips went. I used my cylinder arm machine the other day while making an Annette bag, and I left my clips over there. Yes, you heard me correctly. I used my cylinder arm machine. Oh, right. Container of clips right over here. Where are they? I can't find them. Where did I put them? Oh. Alright, so again, you're just gonna keep clipping, and then we're gonna staple the bottom in place also, because I don't want it to move. Okay, so I have this handy dandy little stapler, and I'm just gonna kind of staple in between the clips, and then honestly I move the clips and staple there too. Ran out of staples, but that's okay, I keep them in my needle drawer. That's one thing I hate about this stapler, is it doesn't hold that many. Alright, where was I? It's not the easiest to staple through leather, so do what you can and hope that it stays. And all of these staples get removed, so they're not going to interfere with the bag necessarily, and they're far enough away from the seam allowance or into the seam allowance, so it's fine. And I'm going to start on a flat portion of my bag. My stitch length is set to 3.5, and I'm going to sew right next to my Peltex. And then as we get closer to a curve, I just kind of slowly go around, leave my needle down if I need to. And then I'm gonna put my hand in through the lining and just kind of open up and shape the bag. Because if you sew it while it's flat the entire time, you're gonna have a lot of weird puckers. So I'm gonna leave my needle in, I'm gonna lift it up, and I'm gonna pull out, make sure my hardware is facing up so I'm not sewing through that. And then when I get to that side connector, which I'm on now, I'm gonna back stitch over it. And then once it's flat again, I'm gonna back stitch. Because if you can hear that noise, that might be my machine skipping over those stitches even. We shall see. So again, my hand is inside here. I'll zoom out, I'm sorry. My hand is inside here just to kind of shape the bag. And we're getting to a flatter portion. Oh, no, I ran out of bobbin thread. All right, sorry, I ran out of bobbin thread. That was what that noise was. Grrr. I should have known. I should have known. So before you start the bottom panel, just go ahead and change your bobbin anyway. Just change it. Who could it hurt? Nobody. Hopefully I didn't mess up my leather too bad, because that would stink. We'll figure it out. All right, so I'm gonna start at the back center portion again. I think I caught most of it. No, I didn't. At all. Okay, all right. Woo! Careful while you're grabbing your fabric with those staples. You don't want to hurt yourself. Okay, and then we're gonna sew right next to the Peltex. Just right next to it. I'm getting closer to a curve, so I'm gonna reach in. That side connector, so I'm sewing over it again. All right. So now what we can do is pull out all of these staples. Because the bottom is sewn on. Double check your side connectors as well. Just kind of give them a little yank. Oh, that's in there. Oh yeah, she's attached. Perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna keep pulling out these staples. This one I've been using. No, this one's messed up. Okay. I did mess up my easy snips doing this, so I just continue using the messed up ones for it. If you have a stapler remover, you could use that too. The little alligator mouth. Actually, it kind of looks like a howler now that I think about it. They should make howler shaped staple removers. Okay, so now I'm going to trim the bottom. I am going to leave that side connector long because it's basted into place also. I'm just gonna really slowly cut around the edge. Again, the side connector is basted in, so I'm not cutting through that. It's not really a weight-bearing connector, but you still don't want it to pull out, otherwise, you know, the whole shape of your bag is compromised. Kind of pointless, kind of silly. All right. So there's the bottom of the bag now. And you can kind of look in through the lining and make sure that everything looks pretty good. Oh, it looks pretty good. If you wanted to add purse feet to the bottom of the bag, I like to do that before I sew it closed on this one because it's harder to add purse feet to an oval bottom, in my opinion. Alright, so folding my bottom panel in half both ways and adding snips so we can center it out. Oh, I didn't trim my seam lines on this side. What was I thinking? Okay. So I'm going to start with the side seam clips. And again, you want to use a little bit wider of a seam allowance for your lining just so that it's not saggy at all. Line up your center. Oh. Well, I don't know where my center is, so I'll just fold it in half and clip it. Fold it in half and clip it. That'll be my theme song. What are we gonna do? We're gonna fold it in half and clip it. Alright, so now that we have our 4 main clips into place, we're just going to kind of pinch the curves into place and add clips. And working on them as just quadrants instead of like 2 main pieces is so much easier. 2, 1, 2. So now our bottom lining panel is all clipped in place, and we can just zip through sewing that. trim the extra seam allowance down, trim it down. And now we're ready to birth the bag. Oh boy. It's gonna be so fun, especially with leather. All right, so make sure if you use zippers, make sure your panel is unzipped. We're going to grab the bottom of the bag first. I just kind of like fold it in half like a taco. I think I'm gonna have Taco Bell for dinner. I've been mentioning tacos a lot. All right, so we're gonna grab that. And this is why using Decoville is so nice, because those wrinkles aren't gonna hold. Okay. All right, now we're gonna push the bottom out. And I just like to run my finger along that bottom seam and kind of massage it through. It's really nice. The leather feels amazing. And then you should be able to kind of just push out your little zipper ends. Like so. Push your lining into place as well. And then before you sew your opening closed, you want to kind of reassess, do I want to add purse feet? And I know that I do want to add purse feet, otherwise my customer might be mad. So I'm going to really quick grab 5 purse feet. So I've got 5 purse feet, 5 purse feet washers, and I'm ready to add them. You could absolutely do this before you sewed the bag together, but it's not always easy. So I'm gonna grab a ruler. My bottom piece is 11 inches wide. So 2 inches and 2 inches. Yeah, that looks good. So 1 inch in from the side and 2 inches in from the center are where I'm adding the main ones. Ooh, 2 inches, 2 inches. And then 5.5 inches from the side. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches wide, just about. So we'll add a 2.5. Okay. Sorry. So there are my purse feet markings. Hi, Ben. Come here. What are you doing? What's up? All right. So because I left the bottom open, that helps me. I can keep a hand inside. I'm going to poke through all of my purse feet marks. Make sure you're not poking through your lining at all or your finger. Both of those are bad. And then I'm gonna poke through all of my purse feet. If you're having trouble with your purse feet, make sure you are sticking them in the same way you cut the hole. I mean, you can't put them in perpendicular. You can twist them once they're in, which is what I'm going to do. So what I like to do is I like to twist them just to make them a little tighter against the slit. It almost just kind of like screws them into place. And then I'm gonna use my washers, open them up from the inside, and then you don't want to slide them into that circle, you want to slide them into the parallel lines. All right, washer, where'd you go? I dropped the washer inside. Okay, where am I at? Okay, let's just do it from the bottom. This isn't as easy because you can't see anything, but I mean, I guess you could if you looked down in, but that's okay. All right, so I'm opening them up and pushing them through the parallel lines, and that'll hold that in place nicely. If you're like, wait, what are you doing? I have a video that is strictly about installing purse feet, so you can check that out. Luckily, I've installed enough purse feet that I could probably do it in my sleep. All right, so purse feet are now installed. I'm gonna go ahead and sew up this opening. I'm gonna fold it under and sew through it. I'm gonna add a little label. I purchased my labels through a company, I think it was called like JP Labels or something. It was pretty affordable. Just make sure you've got a pretty simple artwork that you want to use. Where's this from? JC Basic. And the lady I ordered through, her name was Alice. The only complaint I had was that my colors weren't quite right. And she was like, well, you should have ordered a sample then. We did the best we could. And I was like, fine, whatever. So this was actually supposed to be like a mint green, and it's like a neon green. It looks terrible, but kind of looks 70s-ish. I'm into it. They are woven labels. They're not screen printed. They're pretty cool. All right, so now we can push our lining down into the bag. I'm gonna zip it up, and then I'm just gonna kind of like push it down. I'm gonna clip it along the corners, and then I'm gonna unzip it on this side because you see how my lining wasn't caught into that? You wanna make sure you catch your lining, so fold your lining into it. The first few I made, I definitely didn't do that, and I'm like, why does this look terrible? Well, that's why. So again, just gonna kind of like squish it down, add a clip, open it up, and then make sure I grab my lining into there. Hi, Ben. If you're not helping, get out of here. Back up, back up, back up, back up. Sorry, guys. You're used to it. Hey, man, go to your spot. Go on, go to your spot. Go to your spot. Go on. Go on, don't show your butt. This is YouTube, man. What are you thinking? Okay, good job. No, stay, stay. Sit down. Ben's been mad at me because I've been out of town. Sit. Good boy. Okay, so now we're ready to add our side connectors. All right, come here. Sit down. Sit down. Good job. Good boy. All right. So we're gonna add our strap side diddly-doos. I don't know what to call them. These are not the easiest thing to add to your bag, but you can do it. I believe in you. I'm gonna use my 1/4 inch double-sided basting tape, and I'm literally just gonna tape along the entire thing. Against the fold lines. So, do. Ben, what are you doing? I'll cut that piece off. Is it almost time for me to go, Ben? I need to get ready. All right, so there's that. What are you doing? Okay, so I've got these all clipped up. You see, Ben? See? Do they look nice? He's like, I don't care. And then I'm going to untape it. Honestly, the key to getting these to look nice is a lot of tape. A lot of tape. Or you can use the stabilizer piece. And it's just gonna have raw edges. I've done that before, it looked fine. Okay, so we're gonna fold the bottom ends of these first, and then we're gonna fold the sides in. Or maybe it's the other way around, I don't know. But you want to fold all of your raw ends in, and then I fold it in half and put it through a connector like so. And then I'm going to clip it together, and then we're going to grab some double-sided tape after that. So I'm just using these clips to kind of press it together for a little while I get this one together. And then we're gonna use 1/2 inch basting tape to hold it onto here. Yeah. Oh, you're leaving now? Go on then. Go to your spot. Go to your spot. Go to your spot. Don't do that to the bag. Go to your spot. Where are you going? Over here. Ben says it's looking great. He's encouraging you all as well. Don't bite me. Alright, so we're untaping this, folding one side under. Lay down. Lay down or go away. Stop. You guys, sewing with a cat is not the easiest thing to do. Okay, so now we're gonna grab our other piece. Other snap hook, fold this under, and then on top. Okay, perfection. So I'm gonna grab 2 pieces per attachment. And I'm gonna lay them like that. I'll unput this one at the tape. Go away. Okay, so now to make sure these connectors look fabulous and the shape of your bag is accurate, I hook the snap hook onto the bottom. I'm gonna trim my zipper piece. And then I'm gonna stretch this up towards it. And then I can control the shape of the bag. I can control how high or low that little hook part goes. So the first one I'm gonna untape is the back. Is that really where you wanna sit? Okay then, just right on my, okay. All right, so I'm gonna use the double-sided tape along the bottom. Get that in place first. And then I'm gonna undo the top tape and then stretch that up. Like that. And then I'm gonna clip it together. It's a lot to clip through. And just kind of double check that I like the way that looks, and that looks pretty good. Okay, bye. And then I'm gonna trim my extra zipper on the other side. And we're gonna do the exact same thing. We're gonna clip our snap hook to the D-ring. We're gonna undo our top tape, or bottom tape, I'm sorry. And we're gonna stretch it underneath. Now we'll undo the top tape, bring that part up as well. This might be a little high up, so I did need to make the D-ring connectors a little smaller, but I like this. It's very secure. It's a lot taller. So there is the shape of the bag. You see how small this is? I mean, like, it's not small, but I don't know. I'm not in love with it. So now we're gonna unhook it. We can start with just the one side unhooked. We're gonna leave our stitch length pretty small, so a 3.5 or a 4. and we're gonna sew it onto the bag. If your machine can't stitch through this, but you can rivet, I would add a total of 3 rivets, 2 on the side and 1 along the bottom here. But I mean, do what you can. I'm sorry you can't really see this, but I'm going to start at the top of the triangle connector. I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to unzip this just because that'll help me smash it together. Okay, starting at the top. Come around to the side, turn it over. And you want to make sure you're sewing through both pieces. Oh. Okay. And then we're going to slowly turn it underneath. And sew across the bottom. And then we're going to turn it all the way around and sew up. And that is the easiest way that I have found to attach that to your bag. Okay. And then you can re-clip it. And then we're going to do the other side. And you want to make sure that your zipper doesn't like fold over onto itself, so that's why I kind of zipped it down to where it is now, and then I'll move it after. Okay, so turn it. Down the side, turn it again, and again. This is why that Decaville is so nice to have. It's sold through gotinterfacing.com. Barb ships fast, awesome quality, fuses quickly. Anyway, and then we'll sew down the other side. Great, and now your bag is finished. Just kidding. Punch it back into place. And then I'm going to use my thread zapper just to clean up these areas, make sure nothing starts to fray. Ooh, look at that smoke. Okay, so this side is done. And then this one needs to be zapped. Let's see how the underside looks. Okay, looks good. And just kind of take a second to look over everything, and we're ready to add the handles, and then this bag is finished, and then I can do something else. Alright, so loop your handles through. I'm just gonna sew these on. I think it's not really easy to rivet through them, so since they're leather. pretty cute. And when you open it up, it's just so hard to get into, but you've got two pockets. Nice dainty little bag. Okay, so on those handles. I'm gonna switch my stitch length to a 3.5. I'm sewing from the back side, and I'm just gonna start sewing, then back stitch, and then I'm gonna lift up and just move my machine, like keep the thread attached, and sew on the other one. And then I'll just thread zap them so they don't fray. So in case you were wondering what I meant. All right, Brooklyn handbag is all done. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to follow the pattern instructions when you're making this bag as well, so that it doesn't end up a little different, kind of like mine did. There's the purse feet. Leave a comment below if you enjoyed the video, if you were annoyed that Ben interrupted so rudely, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.